Good morning, children. Welcome back in today's session. So yesterday we have started new chapter number 11, air and water. In that we have discussed till now about air, composition of air, properties of air as well as uses of air. Now today we will talk about water. So water is very essential for survival. All living things need water. It is plants or animal, all living things. We get water from rivers, ponds, lakes, rain, etc. So you all know that water exists in all three states: solid, liquid and gaseous state. Solid, liquid as well as in gaseous state. Now you also know the conversion of states of matter, that ice melts to form liquid, and liquid, by the process of evaporation, it changes into water vapor or gas. Then when gas is cools, by the process of condensation, it again changes into liquid, and when liquid freezes, it changes into solid, that is ice. So water freezes to form ice at 0 degree Celsius, and water is heated or water boils at 100 degree Celsius. Now water as universal solvent. So why water is known as universal solvent? So water dissolves many substances in it, and that's why it is known as universal solvent. Our main source of water is rainwater. Now we'll talk about the impurities of water. So the substances that make the water unfit for use are called impurities. Impurities are of two types: soluble impurities and insoluble impurities. So first we will talk about soluble impurities. So all those impurities that can dissolve in water are called soluble impurities. For example, salts. And insoluble impurities, all these impurities that do not dissolve in water are called insoluble impurities. For example, sand and mud. Now removal of impurities in water. So there are two ways of removal of impurities. First we will talk about removal of insoluble impurities, and then we will talk about removal of soluble impurities. So first, removal of insoluble impurities. So insoluble impurities like sand can be removed by using the following method. What are the methods by which insoluble impurities like sand can be removed? Those are sedimentation, decantation and filtration. We will talk one by one about each method. First one is sedimentation. In sedimentation, what happens in this method? A mixture of water and insoluble impurities is allowed to stand undisturbed in a container for some time. The heavy insoluble impurities settle down at the bottom of the container. You can see here impurities are mixed in the water, and here after leaving it for few time, what happens? The insoluble impurities, it settle down at the bottom of the container. This layer of impurities is called sediments. These are known as, that settle down at the bottom, are known as sediments. When impurities settle down, clear water is left above the layer of impurities. You can find here clear water. So when impurities, that is sediment, settles down, then we can see that clear water is left above the layer of impurities. So this process of settling down of impurities at the bottom is known as sedimentation. What is the process known as? Sedimentation, settling down of the sediments or impurities at the bottom. Next method is decantation. So after sedimentation, what you have got? Sediments have settled down at the bottom. So in this process what happened? The clean water is poured gently into our separate container without disturbing the sediments of impurities. Okay, decantation method means the clean water is poured gently into another separate container without disturbing the sediments of impurities. This process of pouring water, pure water, in another container is known as decantation. Last method is filtration. This method is used to separate water from insoluble impurities like sand by using a filter paper. To filter a mixture of water and sand, a cone of filter paper is made and kept inside a funnel. The mixture is poured into the funnel. The sand does not passes through the filter paper and remains behind on the filter paper. This is called residue. The clear water comes out of the filter paper and is collected in the flask below the funnel, that is called filtrate. This method of purifying water is called filtration. Check here, this is the impure water. Okay, this is the filter paper kept in a funnel. This is the funnel. You can see here on this funnel filter paper is kept by making a cone. This is a flask. So when impure water is poured in this filter paper, what happened? The impurities are collected here and these impurities are known as residue. Okay, and the pure water goes and filters and goes at the bottom of the conical flask. So this pure water is known as filtrate. The impurity that is collected in the filter paper is known as residue and the pure water collected in the conical flask is a filtrate. This process is known as filtration. Now, second we will talk about removal of soluble impurities. So, when impurities are mixed in the water, it is soluble. So, soluble impurities can be removed by following two methods. First is evaporation and second is distillation. So, you all know about evaporation. In this method, the solution containing soluble impurities like salt is heated. After some time, water gets evaporated, changes into steam and the impurities are left behind. So in evaporation what happens? Water mixes into air in the form of water vapor and only impurities are left behind. In this picture you can see evaporation. Okay, water is boiled. So what happens? Water changes into water vapor and it mixes into the air and the remaining impurities are left at the bottom of the container or evaporating disk. So this process is known as evaporation. Second process is distillation. In distillation, both impurities and pure water are obtained. Okay, in distillation process what happened? Both pure water as well as impurities are separated. So in this method what happens? See, this is a distillating flask. Okay, here thermometer is kept at the top. Here it is connected with one tube like container. This is known as condenser and this condenser is again attached with this flask. Okay, so what happens here? On heating water, now this distilling flask contains water along with the impurities. Okay, so here what happens? On heating, water changes into steam. Here what happens? On heating, water changes into steam and impurities are left behind in the flask. Like evaporation process, here also water changes into steam and impurities are collected here. But after that what happens? The steam passes through this condenser. After water changes into steam, it passes into this condenser, and here it cools and changes into water again. This water is pure and is collected in the separate flask. Okay, and now this pure water is known as distilled water. So water which is collected here, this is known as distilled water. Okay, understood? What happened here? Water vapor, water is heated and water changes into water vapor. After that it is connected to another condenser. Here that water vapor comes and they cools down and changes into liquid, and this liquid water is again collected in this receiving flask. So here the water which is collected, it is pure water and it is known as distilled water, and the impurities again remain at the bottom of this distillating flask. So this process is known as distillation. Okay, the process of boiling water and condensing the vapor and collecting the condensed liquid is known as distillation process. Okay, now we will talk about the purification of drinking water. So drinking water is transparent, colorless and tasteless and has no smell. It is free from suspended particles and germs. So drinking water is tasteless, colorless and free from germs. So at home we can purify drinking water by following method. What are the method? First one is boiling and second one is chlorination. So boiling, in boiling what happens? Water is heated for 10 minutes to kill all the germs present in it. This makes the water pure. It is the simplest way to purify water. Second process is chlorination. It is the process of adding chlorine tablets to water to kill the germs present in it. Chlorine is type of a chemical. Okay, so chlorine tablets are available which is added in the water to kill the germs present in it. This makes water fit for drinking. Now we'll talk about the purifying drinking water for towns and cities. So how entire water is purified for towns and cities? So towns and cities need a lot of water. Here water from lakes, ponds and rivers is collected and purified in big water treatment plants. It is made to undergo sedimentation, filtration and chlorination. Then it is stored in huge water tanks from where it is supplied to homes through pipes. So you can see this picture, water is collected here. Okay, through different process it goes. You can see here sedimentation process is going on. The impurities settle down here. Then here water is allowed to move through filters that are made of sand and gravels. After that germs are killed by adding the chlorine here. Okay, after that these waters are collected in the water tanks and then they are transferred to the homes of citizens. So this is the process of purification of drinking water. So this is the end of the chapter. Okay, watch the video if you have again any difficulty in understanding. Watch the video again and we will discuss. If any problem is there, we will discuss in Zoom class. Okay, thank you. Have a nice day.